Welcome in, college football fans. Welcome back. It's time. It's time for college football again, man. I'm super excited.
Yeah, man.
Welcome back.
We're
Back in the
here.
saddle, baby. We can't
Yes.
play back in the saddle because YouTube will, strike down our video and smite us from the earth. But we've got college football here to talk about. And right now we are going to be talking about the Texas Longhorns going on the road to the Ohio State Buckeyes. It's the preseason #1 team versus the preseason #3 team. And it hasn't been very long since we've gotten to see this game. Now the teams look totally different.
Yeah.
After 26 combined players went to the NFL after last year's matchup, but it was only 8 months ago that Ohio State beat Texas 28-14. And we're about to see the fifth ever meeting between the two teams. And right now it's split 2-2. And we're going to see the fifth ever meeting between the two teams coming up this Saturday at noon. Ohio State opens up as a 2.5-point favorite. That number has slid down to 1.5. So you got people betting the Texas side of this thing. And then you got the over-under set at 47.5. So all you bettors out there, those numbers make sense to you. If you don't bet, that probably sounds like gibberish. But speaking of betting, we'll have a betting show later this week here on the First and Long College Football Show channel. If you're new here, that's something that we'll do every single week throughout the season, and something that we like to promote. And we hope that you'll come and join us. That's a live show, so you can come and comment and tell us what your thoughts are on the game and all that good stuff. Back to the action here, though, man. Both teams starting new quarterbacks, and new-ish, I guess you could say. Arch Manning has been around. It feels like Arch Manning has been around for years now because we've talked about him so much. But we've really only seen limited action of him, and it's been in some cleanup moments. It's been in some moments of injury when Quinn Ewers had went out with some injuries, but Quinn's gone. Okay, and it's the Manning era's time here at Texas. We've seen it at Tennessee, we've seen it at Ole Miss, and now we will see it with the Texas Longhorns in the SEC. So I'm interested to see, obviously, which one of these guys, these quarterbacks, Julian Sayin, obviously for Ohio State, he's a new quarterback as well. Which one of these guys is able to really come out and lead their team at Ohio State? Julian Sayin and the Buckeyes clearly have an advantage there.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you make of the quarterback matchup? We've talked about Arch Manning in the past. But this is a whole different thing, man. All of this is on his shoulders. What are your thoughts on the quarterback matchup going in?
Yeah, I mean, this game as a whole just has no shortage of talking points, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Arch Manning being one of them. Just the fact that both teams are starting a new quarterback is another one. And not to steer off topic, I could go on, but looking at the quarterback competition here, Arch Manning has a year on Julian Sayin, right? Has a year, a couple of extra starts, a lot more snaps. From an experience standpoint, he's more in tune with this offense and with Steve Sarkisian and his game plan and what he wants to do. I think you have to give the edge to Arch Manning in this circumstance, right? Julian Sayin may go on to have a better career, college, pro, whatever. He may be a better pro prospect. But in this season, and in particular in week one, I like where Arch Manning's at in comparison to Julian Sayin. However, he is playing on the road, and it'll be his first hostile environment that he's going to be starting in.
And it's going to be hostile.
I think one of my main points to the game here, and we'll kind of circle back to this, and I'll tie it all together at the end when we're giving predictions and things like that. But one of the main points that I wanted to talk about in this video is Arch Manning is probably going to be pressing a little bit early in this game, right? I think the crowd is going to play a huge factor in rattling Arch Manning and also getting the offensive line that's new for Texas for the most part. It's going to get them out of sync. There's going to be some penalties.
Yeah.
It's going to get the offense sputtering. And that's when Arch Manning feels the pressure saying, this is my team. This is my offense. I got to make a throw. And he's going to make a mistake early. I can guarantee it.
I wouldn't be surprised to see each of these quarterbacks struggle a little bit in the first half against these two defenses, because I think both defenses are going to be well suited to be ahead of schedule versus each of the offenses. And that's not uncommon early in the season. We see it pretty much every year. And you're going to see on the betting show this week, these lines that Vegas has set, I think a lot of the numbers are as they were what you would expect, right? Just knowing what we know coming out of the preseason. But guys, we don't know that much.
Yeah.
We don't know that much. There's surprises every year. There's teams we thought were going to be really good and they're not. And maybe that's one of these teams. I'm not sure yet. But here's where I see some advantages for each team. Ohio State has the best defensive player and the best offensive player in the country.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that with Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. So on each side of the ball, in two of the three facets of the game, you've got the best player on the field at all times if you're Ohio State. And that there is something to be said for that, because in college football, sometimes one guy can take over a game. And Caleb Downs can do that, and Jeremiah Smith can do that. If they do it on the same day, they may be unbeatable. And especially being at home.
Well, and especially Caleb Downs being a kick returner and a punt returner.
Well, and there's your third facet. Yeah. And that may be the difference in this game. I mean, a 1.5 point spread, a punt return, that puts your team in position to kick a field goal, in a game where it's low scoring, that may be the difference.
It doesn't have to be a touchdown.
It doesn't have to be a touchdown. Yeah. It could be flipping the field. So that's certainly possible. Here's where I see an advantage for Texas. Texas has a much better and more experienced, I won't say much better, has a much more experienced coaching staff than Ohio State does right now. Ohio State, obviously, they've got champagne problems right now. And champagne problems happen at just about every program after you win a championship. And sometimes some programs are lucky enough to do it 2 years in a row. But everybody wants a piece of that pie. Everybody wants a piece of that pie. And that's what happened to Ohio State. All the coaching staff gone. Brian Hartline is coming in his very first game. And he's called some games in the past now, but he's the man now. He is the man now. And Brian Hartline, as far as I'm concerned, is a living legend at Ohio State for the talent that he's brought into that program. But now it's his turn to call all the plays. And it's not an easy job. It's not an easy job. Chip Kelly went through the wood chipper at times last year with the fan base, and we talked about it. He was stubborn in some ways, but his ultimate plan, it was a long play. All year long, Chip Kelly knew what he was doing. He's been a head coach. It was a long play. What do we see from Brian Hartline today? I mean, it's hard to hold anything back when you've got an opponent like Texas. So I'm really interested to see what the coaching staff does with Ohio State and how they handle this situation. Who do you think needs this win more? Because I'm going to be honest with you, as I've praised Sarkisian and his coaching staff and Kwiatkowski and all those people, they need this win more, I think. Yeah. But I mean, and I don't think that's that tough of a question. Leave it to me to ask the tough questions. The team that just won the national championship, they don't have to win. Yeah, obviously they don't have to win. But this win would mean a whole heck of a lot to the Texas Longhorns.
Absolutely, and I think this season as a whole, it's going to mean more for Texas. Having Arch Manning, having this prolific quarterback, you don't want to spoil that.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, where the pressure is building on Steve Sarkisian. You can't spoil having a Manning in your quarterback room. You can't. With all the other tools that he has and the seemingly endless supply of NIL.
You can't now that the steam has been built up to this point, it's like it's ready to explode. I mean, there was people saying last year, sit Quinn, put in Arch.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have disagreed more. I couldn't have disagreed with that sentiment anymore. I'm not sold that Arch Manning is just ready to win the Heisman this year.
Yeah.
I'm not sold on that. We know that he's got the bloodline. Okay. That's great, but that's only going to take you so far. And I'm not saying he doesn't work hard. I'm sure he does. It seems like he works hard. I like him as a person. I don't dislike Arch Manning. But I got to see more from the dude before I'm ready to just crown him champ of all champs. I mean, but crazier things have also happened. I watched Joe Burrow his, first year at LSU, and I thought, he's a decent quarterback.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then he just ended up being one of the best I've ever seen. So it can certainly happen. One could say something like that about Stetson Bennett. the most decorated college football quarterback that's ever played the game, and he was a walk-on.
Yeah.
So things can change dramatically. And, I'm not married to that take. I think Arch has got the potential. I'm just not sold that he is the end-all be-all. And he's going to need some help, and he's going to have help. He's going to have help, certainly, from this offense. But I definitely think Texas needs this win more. What say you?
Yeah, 100% Texas. I think coming out of this game, you're not going to know a lot about each team. And it's just like Texas versus Michigan last year. Texas was very prepared, which I think matters in this game, in this season, new team and all that. But I think Steve Sarkisian showed the ability to get his team up for a big game week 1, which really helps in the off-season conditioning, and it gets the players wired right for that week 1
You've got their attention.
Absolutely. And so I think when the game is over, we're not going to know a ton about each team. We didn't really know that Michigan was that bad. I mean, if you look at week 1 of last year, you're looking at it and you're saying, wow, Texas is either really good or Michigan's really bad. Well, it was kind of both, right?
Yeah.
And this could end up being a really close game, and both teams could be bad. I doubt it. I think we're talking about two new powerhouses, or not new, but two perennial powerhouses here. But with these new teams, but going up against some of the other elite teams in the country, we're really not going to know based off of this matchup alone. And same can be said about Arch Manning. We're not going to know if he goes out there and passes for 50%, throws 2 picks, 1 touchdown, and 200 yards. That's a very subpar stat line. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to win the Heisman by the end of the year, or he can't lead his team to a national championship based off of 1 game. These teams are going to develop throughout the entire season. But we're putting all the pressure on week 1 because we're ready to see it, and we've been anxious for a few months now. But to me, just going back to what we said earlier, it's Texas has got to get this win. They're feeling the pressure more. I think it's going to be really tough to do it in the shoe.
I think so too, and it ultimately puts more pressure on your team to. If you take a loss in week 1 in the non-con, it puts more pressure on your conference schedule the rest of the year, because you've got to win your conference pretty much there throughout the rest of the year. That you got to figure out a way to win the SEC then if you're Texas, because that's when, if you lose a game in your conference after that and you don't have a chance to go to your conference championship, you're just leaving it all up to the committee, and you don't want to be in that situation, especially whenever you're the preseason number 1 team. And by the way, I believe this is the first time ever that the preseason number 1 team in the country has started off the season not the favorite in their opening game. It's the first time that's ever happened. And it's going to be for the Texas Longhorns. So welcome to being number 1. You're the underdog week 1, and which is odd to say. Look, here's the deal. I think this one is really, really simple. I think this is going to come down to whoever can run the ball better here, Mason, because I got a lot of respect for both defenses. Okay. And I've been told that Texas's run defense has been bolstered, right? It's a little older. It's a little stronger. I wasn't particularly over the top impressed with the interior of their defensive line last year, especially in comparison to what it was in 23. It was unbelievable. Honestly, in 23, Texas's interior, their defensive line was responsible for giving up only about 75 yards a game rushing. Last year, they were more like 120, 130 yards of rushing by the end of the season. So that's a big difference. Or can we get somewhere in the middle of that? I think it's unreasonable to ask to get back to the 2023 level. But the interior of that defensive line, I think, is going to be stepped up a little bit. And I think that's going to put pressure on what is a newly formed offensive line for Ohio State that I feel like we're a broken record. It's like a newly formed every year, it seems like, the last few years. But that's what we're dealing with again. And are they able to match up with what I think is an extremely talented front 7 for the Texas Longhorns? If they can match up well with them and they're able to run the football, well, I think whoever runs the ball better in this game, I think ultimately is going to be the one that is going to win. And we talked about special teams. It's close enough of a game, I think, to where special teams is certainly going to play a role. A guy like Caleb Downs That may be the difference in this game right here, guys.
Absolutely. I think we're in for a really tight matchup.
Yeah. Low scoring, I think.
Going back to what you were talking about with the interior, the defensive line for Texas, they did the same thing last year where they lost a lot off the 2023 roster, right?
Yeah.
So they go to the transfer portal, get a couple of guys. So those guys are gone now. Bill Norton's gone, So what do? You go in and bring in 5 more transfers on the interior of that defensive line.
Yeah.
And some studs, some former 5-stars, Hero Canoe, Travis Shaw. I think Cole Brevard's going to be really good. Are they going to gel right away? Because you're right. They did that last year. Didn't quite get this many top end guys. I think that they really hit it strong this year.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It definitely wasn't the strong suit of the defense. It was a hole. And
believe me, it was a reaction to what was in the room last year.
Yeah.
It was this was a reaction because I wasn't the only one that felt this way. I'm not making this up.
Mm-hmm.
The Texas staff felt this way.
Yeah.
Because there was moments where if they would have been able to stop the run like they were in 23, they'd have won probably that last game against Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then won the SEC more than likely. And maybe you're seated a little bit differently and that changed. You know what I'm saying? All these things are connected. So that was a reaction. And I agree. It is better. I should say that.
But the back half of this defense, linebackers, secondary, it's really good. I mean, you lose Makuba, that's huge.
That was huge. He was better than I thought he was.
But Malik Muhammad still there. I think he's going to be great.
Yeah.
Michael Taft is somehow still playing college football. I'm not really sure how that works.
7 years old. Yep.
But just Derek Williams is back from his injury. I think that's going to be huge to add some experience there at the safety position. And this might be the best. These might be the best 2. Or I guess if you consider Colin Simmons an outside linebacker or in the linebacker room, might be the best starting linebacker group. I tend to favor Georgia, if you can tell from behind me. I think they've got a really good linebacker group overall, but I don't know that there's anybody better in the country than Anthony Hill Jr. And if if the interior of that defensive line can free up some space for him to roam and fill some gaps and things like that, it could be a long day for the run and attack. For Ohio State. Speaking of that, no more Travion Henderson, no more Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah.
Who's toting the rock for Ohio State? It looks like James Peoples, CJ Donaldson, I think, is going to come over and provide a pretty good bit of work. And then what about the freshman Bo Jackson, who's kind of creeping his way up the depth charts? It sounds like he's had a pretty good fall camp. That's obviously a good name to be a running back.
Pretty solid name.
pretty solid name.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think that's going to be the matchup. You want to take the pressure off of a young quarterback in Julian saying this is just year 2 for him. The best way to do that is to be able to run the ball effectively. It's going to be tough for both camps in this situation. I think you've got a really good defense for Ohio State coming in. And, you're talking about a game of inches, 50 yards rushing, 25 yards rushing difference could be the difference in this football game. That along with the special teams, like you mentioned.
I agree. Maybe somebody can hit an explosive play, catch somebody by surprise, and maybe that'd be the difference. But ultimately, man, I agree with you. I think it comes down to who can run the ball better is going to end up winning this football game. Yeah. This is the biggest game of the weekend, in my opinion. And I don't think anybody can really argue that. Number 1 versus number 3. Give me Texas, man. I just don't feel like I can really pick any other way, just with the way that the coaching staff has kind of worked its way out, and Texas needs this a lot more. They've got the revenge factor in mind. They just lost to this team 8 months ago. And let's just be honest, Ohio State is a shell of what it was last year. Yeah. You talked about guys needing to step up, and that's what it is for Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama. When people leave, now the question is, who's going to step up? And Ohio State has to answer those questions, and Texas has to answer those questions. I think Texas has less questions to answer. And with the continuity in the staff, I just like Texas to have a good game plan going into this one. It seems like the betting public is with me on that, which scares me to death. Yeah. Well, I don't think I'll be betting any money on this one unless I ended up betting the under, because I do think it'll be low scoring.
Yes, I like the under in this play. I think that Texas is going to come in and just run the football the first couple of drives, just see what they can get. If they get, 3 to 10 points out of it, great on the first 2 drives. That's going to be great. That's going to give your quarterback a little bit of confidence. But if they don't do that, if they get the pre-snap penalties, like I mentioned at the top of the show, I think that's the situation where Texas could lose.
Yeah.
They're in a hostile environment. That crowd's not going to stop. It's not going to stop after the first quarter. It's going to be 4 quarters of absolute terror. And that can weigh on an offensive line, a young offensive line, an inexperienced offensive line, and a young quarterback. Everybody's going to be a little bit rattled. If they don't get the run game going, which I think they'll struggle with a little bit, it's going to be tough sledding. I've got Ohio State. I'm taking the home team here. I think, and it's situational to me, I think Texas is the better team long-term for this season. I think that Texas could be that team like Ohio State last year that crescendoed into the best team in the country by the end of the year.
No.
That may be Texas this year. And with Arch Manning kind of starting at quarterback, they still kind of have to figure out, I know they got Wingo, but they got to figure out who that next big playmaker is with Gunnar Helm leaving the room.
Sure.
I like the running back room this year for Texas as well, but I like the home team in this matchup here, being week 1, both teams starting a new quarterback. They're not really sure what they're going to do offensively yet. Give me the home team. I'm gonna kind of rest on that.
All right, y'all tune in, see what we got later this week. We got more breakdowns coming right at you here on the First and Long College Football Show.